Hey, I want to start today with a scenario that I think is going to sound very familiar to you. Hopefully, not too frequent, but familiar. Here it goes. Somebody walks into your office, and they don't come in hot, they don't come in angry, right? But they do come in with language and an agenda. They are very prepared and they've got the words to prove it, words that really do carry some weight. They sit down and they begin to say something like this: We need more grace around here. Or, I don't feel psychologically safe here. Or, this just doesn't feel like family. And you know what? You pause, don't you? And you feel that when people say things like that to you because, well, first, you're a pastor, you care about people, you're a leader, you care about your team. Those words are supposed to land. They came in with those words so that they would land. In fact, you've probably even preached on some of those words before, and I bet you believe in them. So you listen, you feel the weight of this conversation they have brought, and somewhere in that office, you start asking yourself where you missed something. And you know what? That is a trap. And today, I want to help you see it a little more clearly. Now, let me say this first and foremost. I'm not saying that those words are always wrong. Okay. Grace is real. Psychological safety is a genuine condition in healthy teams. It's not like an HR buzzword. Now, family, I do have a little more beef with. I never liked using the term family to describe employment of any kind. Even if you're on a church staff, you're employed. And if you do something wrong, you can't stay on the team. In a family, you can't fire your crazy uncle, right? So I like the word team better than family. So other than that, though, those words are very valid. And here's what I have seen up close and personal in my leadership tenures and helping churches all over the world even now. Vocabulary that was designed to describe the conditions of a healthy organization can get borrowed and weaponized. Like over time, in some cases, that vocabulary, those words stop being used to describe what someone actually needs, and it starts being used to describe what a person may want to avoid. Things like accountability or standards, expectations, consequences. So those words, they stay good, right? But the function of the words can change. I mean, let me give you a few examples using the things we said before. We need more grace. Sometimes actually means I want my missed deadlines to stop being mentioned, and I don't want to be held accountable. Like, I don't feel psychologically safe. Sometimes can mean I want my pushback to be consequence free. That again, I hate the family term, but this doesn't feel like a family. Sometimes means, my family would never ask this of me. And I'm not saying everyone who uses the language that we're talking through here, and there's lots of other versions, I'm not saying they're doing it deliberately or even, consciously. I mean, if we're honest, some people have been in environments where those words really worked and they kind of reached for them naturally. Maybe it was a part of the common language in their previous, team. So, but the language, right, became a pattern. Again, not even on purpose. But whether it is conscious or not, the effect on you as a leader really is the same. And really, it creates a deeper problem. A person who genuinely needs more grace and a person who is just deflecting a performance conversation, they can use the exact same language. And you can't really tell them apart if you just listen to the words they're giving you. So, how can you tell them apart? What do you do when someone comes into your office and uses the word grace or psychological safety or any of the other kind of things that someone may try to use? Let me give you a diagnostic move that I have used and I think will immediately change how you can handle these types of conversations. So, when a high value language, okay, shows up in a complaint, and high value language means those words like grace, psychological safety, things like that. So when a person in your office sitting with you over coffee, whatever it may be, when they use a high value word, high value language, your instinct is going to be to engage with the value. I'm going to ask you to resist that temptation. And instead, I want you to engage the request instead. So when someone says to you, I just think we need more grace around here. Or this, again, please don't let them say family, but psychological safety, whatever they come to you with. I would love for you to, in turn, ask them a question. And here's the question: what would that look like if we got it right? So again, we just need more grace around here. And you go, oh, that's interesting. What would it look like if we got grace around here right? What would it look like if we got that around here right? And that's it. It's a very simple question, but let me tell you what it does. It does something very significant. It moves the conversation from the word, the value, to the meaning of the word. It requires the person who's bringing the language to you to define what they are actually asking for beyond just the potential buzzword hiding an agenda. Now, listen kind of carefully, right, to what they describe when you ask this question, right? Like, you're not asking this question manipulatively. You really are asking it for a reason. Because if, for instance, their picture of grace means better development time and clearer expectations or more consistent feedback, that is a real conversation, and it is worth having and addressing it directly. And, for you as a leader, that is on you. But if their picture of grace maybe means fewer consequences when the standards aren't met, well, now you have been handed a value conversation, right? You have been handed a performance conversation, and it's just wearing different clothes cloaked under that word. So, now, right, if that's where we, and of course, probably nobody's probably going to say, I just don't want consequences. But when you listen between the lines, you can begin to understand if it is a real issue or if it's an opportunity for them to grow. And now you can commit to helping them beyond just the value-laden word. So that one follow-up question, it is so simple, but it really does separate the two different paths that the word can take, and it'll do it every single time. Now, let me tell you, though, what's going to happen for leaders who don't really develop these kinds of fluency around a question like this. And I've seen this play out in so many churches, and including my own earlier in my leadership tenure. What we end up doing is we address the word. Right? You bring in a speaker on psychological safety, or maybe, the pastor relaunches their family culture values at the next all-staff meeting. And again, please stop using the word family, right? But, or maybe you're tempted to add a grace posture section to the staff meeting notes, right? Like, these are genuine, sincere attempts to meet the person with what they brought you. But what if what they brought you was more of a weapon designed to help them avoid harder work or consequences or accountability? If you do that, if you allow yourself to kind of fall into that trap, here's what will happen. Nothing's going to change. Actually, things may change. They may get worse, because the problem was never the word. The problem was how that word was being weaponized. And of course, meanwhile, something else is happening on your team, not your family, on your team. Standards across the board can soften, and the culture quietly receives a message, that the right language can move the leader. And that is a dangerous message for a culture to carry, especially if you care deeply about your mission and about moving forward. I mean, your strongest team members are watching how you handle these kinds of conversations. And listen, they are not going to use the language when they walk into your office as a complaint. They're just going to get tired of seeing you acquiesce to those people who are using that language. And one day, you're going to look up and realize that the people who were carrying the most have either quietly disengaged or have just left. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to leave you with the people and their weaponized words. That will be your new team. So there is a much longer fix to this too. That one question is certainly a great place to start, but if you really want to take some serious action this week, let me just kind of push a little more on it for you. The solution here is not in just how you respond to individual conversations, right? Asking that question is a great way to respond in an individual conversation. But there are other things you can do, like defining some of these words before someone tries to redefine them for you in your office over that coffee conversation. So, what would it look like maybe if your team actually knew what grace means behaviorally in your organization? And when I say that, I mean like precisely what it means, and not theologically, but behaviorally. Like, what would it look like for you as a leader, or what does it look like for the organization to extend grace to someone who misses a deadline? Well, what does it look like when you decide not to? Both of those answers matter, right? Both of them should be clear. And the same thing with trust or safety. I mean, name any of the words and you can create some clarity around it. I mean, ambiguity really is the condition that makes these conversations possible as a tool. You know what clarity does? Clarity removes the weaponization of the word. So I don't know, maybe here's an idea. Maybe, and you're probably gonna hear this and go, I'm not doing that, but I don't know, maybe it would help. What if you built a team glossary? And I don't mean like a document that a PDF that you filed on in a folder on somebody's laptop, but like, what if you actually had kind of a living set of definitions that you actually used in real conversations? And I know maybe you've never heard of that before, but it's a pretty good solution if you're working in a team setting where words like this are being used too frequently. Like when you use words like trust or grace in a meeting, it would be super helpful if there was clarity around the definition. And if you created clarity kind of in this glossary in a way, you could say the definitions out loud all the time. For instance, you're in the meeting and you say, by trust, here is what I mean for us. By safety, here is what I mean for us. And you know what? That's not over explaining. It's actually just leading with a lot more clarity and precision. And when you model this consistently, I'll tell you what, something shifts in your team. The vocabulary becomes owned. And then when the vocabulary is owned, when the words are owned and the actual definitions are shared, it becomes much harder to borrow them for a selfish purpose. So here's what I would love for you to think about doing this week, next week. Maybe you just pull your leadership team together and you ask them one question. And you could pick any word, but I'll just use grace. If someone on our team said they needed more grace, what would we say that means for us? And then just allow the conversation to go. And don't steer it, just listen for how the people in your leadership circle define it. And here's what you'll hear. It'll tell you exactly how much definition work needs to be done. And if the room gets really quiet, or if you get some, 5 different answers from 5 different people, then, you have some clear work to do there. If people can answer pretty clearly and consistently, I mean, great news. You've built something that's probably worth protecting. I mean, either way, though, you're going to learn something. And knowing where you are is how you know what to work on next.